Hi, everybody. Welcome to the As the Pagan Show. And today I have a very special guest, one of my best friends over the years, for more years than I want to, or I say sometimes. And somebody who's been very much a part of the Chicago community, especially in the early days when it was forming. She was one, like myself, we were one amongst the students that would eventually become leadership. And I want to talk to her today, and that is Melanie Silver, high priestess and has a legacy temple that she's now trying to bring back into existence, um, called Panthea. Hmm. We'll let her talk more about that. Hi, Melanie.
Hi, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're watching this from.
One of my favorite catchphrases. Uh, but let's start. Who are you? Who are you today? What are you doing today?
Well, as you said, I'm working on bringing back a legacy temple called Panthea Pagan Fellowship, UUA, and the
Hmm.
UUA stands for the Unitarian Universalist Association.
Hmm.
Panthea was the very first pagan group in the UUA. We are not a CUPS group. We are not any other affiliation in any way. We are a separate organized church body, and we're trying to bring that back because unfortunately, due to some things over the years, we've lost our charter, and I'm looking to reestablish that.
So let's go ahead and back you up. It says, how did you get involved being a pagan?
Well, boy, as a kid, you're always exploring different things. You're looking at different beliefs. And I come from a mixed religious home. Dad was Catholic, mom Jewish, all kinds of things. I associated with all kinds of kids growing up. And this was, the very start of things, the 70s, 80s, when you're starting to explore and meet new people outside of your local
Hmm.
neighborhood. So religion to me wasn't a priority really because as a kid, again, we celebrated everything because of our family. We had Christmas, we had Hanukkah, we had Passover, we did everybody. So yeah, I started reading things. I started finding books, local
Hmm.
library, believe it or not, at the time actually had a few pagan titles. And then, you find local bookstores. I mean, like the occult bookstore's been around, as we know, over 100 years.
Hmm.
And for many years, they were in what used to be called Boys Town. It's very popular, and there were a lot of coffee shops. And I spent a lot of time there, buying books, talking to people, and things got, established from there. And then we used to have, well, we still do, a paper called The Reader. I'm sure you remember The Reader, Ed.
Hmm.
It
Oh,
was,
sure. I love the reader.
yeah, pre-computers. This was the way to communicate amongst everybody. People would put in ads for different events and whatnot. And one day I was looking through The Reader, just trying to find something to do for a weekend or whatever. And I found an ad for Panthea. I figured, okay, fine. What is this? Looked it up. I thought, okay, let's go see what it's all about. And I went to one of their Sunday services. They did have regular Sunday services with our founding priestess, Dr. Krista Hayden Landon, who has a demon doctor of ministry from the Unitarian Universalist Association, Midvale Lombard in Chicago. And she's retired as of now, as far as I know. But
Hmm.
she held regular Sunday services. And I thought, okay, let's go see what's all about. I knew nobody there, didn't know anything about the group, and something clicked.
Hmm.
And I went a couple more times, and my first public out ritual was Samhain of 1990, and they had a full Samhain ritual
Hmm.
in the church at the Greenview Arts Center, which was also I want to say Presbyterian church. I could have been wrong about that, but it was a Christian-based church, but was very open to what we were doing and would let us use some of their space that was going unutilized for our work. And I'd been a member ever since and worked with the group basically and until Krista left. She moved on to a different posting in a different state, and then somebody else took over the group, and they ran it for a little while. And then I figured, they want to move on. Fine, I'll take it over. I ran the group for about 10 years, and basically until I couldn't anymore. I had two children at that point, and it was just getting to be too much. So basically, I gave everything back to the previous priest, and things just kind of fell apart from there. So, as you said, I'm working on bringing us back, and hopefully, we'll see what happens.
So Panthea not only was influential, it was one of the most influential churches of the day, especially with the Parliament of World Religions. It would be involved as early members. People don't realize I was the
Mhm.
first pagan volunteer of the Parliament, and they started working with the Parliament in '93. They did a lot of stuff and lasted longer than most groups. You've been a big advocate because Drawing Down the Moon, the book, is really essentially about Wicca, paganism, and various aspects that it was forming. But also it's a Chicago book where you were.
Mhm.
You've mentioned this a number of times, and people ask, what do you mean by that? And I'm going to ask you, Drawing Down the Moon, great book. You should get it, you should read it. But a lot of the people that were involved with that were Chicagoans or from Chicago.
Yes, absolutely. Especially the earlier versions of the book. There are several updated versions,
Hmm.
but if you get a first edition, second edition, there's a lot of Chicago history in it. Um, Drawing Down the Moon was written by the late Margot Adler, who was an
Hmm.
NPR correspondent, and she was also the granddaughter of Alfred Adler, the preeminent psychiatrist.
Hmm.
And she was a prominent pagan Wiccan. And she wrote this marvelous book about how paganism, it was basically a scholarly work. This was
Hmm.
not just some book that you get off the shelf in some grocery store. This was a scholarly work, and it talked about paganism in the Chicagoland area predominantly, but the Midwest area, regional, like Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, and all the groups that were so big at the time. I mean, we were huge. Chicago, in particular, had
Hmm.
many, many groups, dozens of groups, and we were all thriving. And you could find any flavor of paganism you were interested in at the time.
And it also had magazines. I
Yep.
ran one of them with Don,
Yes.
which that was Psychic Chicago magazines that became Roundtable,
Mm-hmm.
over 100 editions. There was Avatar by the Danu group, by another group, the
Mm-hmm.
Danu group. And there was a third one on and off. I mean, it would change names. It would be various groups that would do it. And these were free magazines. They weren't even
Yep.
paid magazines that were trying to expand it. And there was like a dozen stores. I mean, that '90s era, we had public rituals, which, that sort of thing. We had a lot of material. Um, so if you were in Chicago '90s, Pagan Way came through Chicago. That was another
Mm-hmm.
one. So I was a Wiccan by one of the earliest Wiccans, Four Steps from Gardner, which was Donna Cole Schultz. That's where I got my Gardnerian degree. People are always surprised that because I identify so much as Corellian. But let me go ahead with you. You basically were involved with a lot of the organization. You're often like a lot of young women in the craft, especially in the sort of organizational. You took on a lot of the load that you didn't get a lot of credit for. Let me
Oh.
point that you didn't get a lot of credit for it, but you took on a lot of load to do it. Can you talk about that experience?
Well, it was something I believed in and still do.
Hmm.
To me, it's my identity as a spiritual person. I don't
Hmm.
necessarily consider myself religious. I consider myself more spiritual.
Hmm.
So at the time, being, being a young adult, you're always looking for something.
Hmm.
And I happen to think I found that paganism is what clicked for me personally. And I figured, if I'm going to do work with these groups, I need to get involved because what is the point if you don't get involved? And so, I helped where I could. I did what I
Hmm.
could. I went to events, I helped organize things, worked with people of all different pagan groups. Unfortunately took the brunt of a lot of garbage sometimes, which
Hmm.
goes along with the job, that.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's whether or not I got credit for things is I think immaterial at this point.
Hmm.
It doesn't necessarily bother me. Um, but I'd like to think that people would think that I'm at least good at what I did and hopefully still am.
Hmm.
And
Well,
I just I wanted to help bring the community together because we were all looking for the same thing.
then about mid 2000s, the Chicago community fell apart.
Hmm.
People have had a lot of theories why it did, but I think the majority of it was a lot of the leadership of the time, baby boomers, started moving out of the city. They
Yep.
just simply did. And that was a very common thing in the mid 2000s. A lot of people moved out, and instead of passing on the groups, they tried to take them out to the suburbs. Um, you got, I know, remember like Panthea, and then Panthea, of course, it's the doctor who's worked so hard at it, ended up finding a position, I think, Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And again, she then moved. And she was very much into what we would call congregational paganism. It was something that really influenced my early career, realizing that you can have a coven, i.e., a closed family knitting group, which is Holy City Temple, and other groups, and that you can have a congregation, which more for us which became the Correllian tradition for us. And the idea of that really influenced Chicago because you had a lot of groups. You had a small coven at its core, but you had like Moondance. You had a lot of the groups that measured into the hundreds. But it felt that these things fell apart. Um, and now, where is the community today? I mean, where do you see your community today? I know it's rebuilding, it's doing Pagan Pride.
Hmm. Well, we're still very loose knit, I think, at this point. We don't
Hmm.
have the group cohesion that we used to have in the community because, as you said, a lot of people moved out to the suburbs or out of state and things and are dying off. Let's face it, we're all getting older.
Hmm.
And a lot of people, as you said, aren't passing on the torch to the younger groups, which is very true. I live out in the suburbs, but I'm willing to do things in the city as well. So
Hmm.
for me, it's also a matter of people who are interested in helping out with the work.
Yeah,
And-
and I know there's a lot of things happening in Chicago. You're also a group we started. I people don't realize that I'm one of the founders of the Chicago Pagan group on Facebook. I keep pretty silent on the group because I always love building platforms to hear
Mhm.
other people speak. People don't realize, even when they come to attack me sometimes, that I'm actually in charge of that group, along with yourself and Alan. I mean, uh, I never try to exert authority um, over groups and things
Mhm.
that I do. Even in the speeches I do, with the interviews I do, I try to give everybody their platform. I do believe in order. I do believe in, not letting random people come in and just attack people. No, we don't
Right.
do that. But having a voice, I think is very important. And I think Chicago allows for a lot of voices. And I think it's going through a thing. So like is it Cross Crows Books, which is actually doing an amazing publishing site.
Hmm.
Chicago is an amazing place for a publishing site. It's Garde. People don't realize, even one time Ouija boards, the first place Ouija boards were made, and where the guy got dumped from the roof, the owner, before he went to Salem. We have the I Am temples. Chicago's always been, from its starting, a metaphysical city,
Hmm.
not a pagan city, not a Wiccan city, but a metaphysical city.
Right.
Hmm. And those
Well,
things. Hmm.
absolutely. I mean, again, look at the occult bookstore. It's been
Hmm.
in business over 100 years. It's moved around, but it's still there. And
Hmm.
obviously it's changed hands, but it's a constant in the community.
Hmm.
And as you said, Cross Crow Books, which is affiliated with Malloway Brothers,
Hmm.
and they're getting quite large in the metaphysical publishing community. And of course, Corellian Publishing, which is also very large in the publishing community for pagan related materials, which is very important. We need these platforms for people who are interested in being published. I mean, there's self publishing too. A lot of people do that. But I think having organized publishers putting out these materials to make it more accessible for people is
I
is
agree.
so important.
And one of the things I think is so important about Cross Crow books is that they're not just bringing out new books. They're doing something very special.
Hmm.
And it's capable today with low print capability of putting out older texts, such as Raven Gimrasi and a lot of the older texts that have disappeared from the bookshelves.
Hmm.
So,
Right. Well, a lot of people too are looking for a more modern viewpoint on paganism, and
hmm.
some of these older titles are a great reference. We have, for example, you've got Buckland, who was incredibly popular at the time he published his original books.
Hmm.
And he's since passed away many years, but and people like Raven Grimassi, who's another or author who's unfortunately gone over, and people like that. We need the foundations, but we need to build on them as well
Hmm.
because viewpoints have changed, I think, very dramatically since a lot of those books were published. Uh, Words have changed meaning a
Oh,
lot,
certainly.
and we have to be cognizant of that. We also have to be cognizant that we have to deal with other things as well. The LGBTQ community, for example, is becoming more outspoken and more prevalent in our community. And we need to be cognizant of their needs as well, I think, with paganism, whereas a lot of older rituals basically dealt with the binary system.
Hmm.
We're trying to open that up more, and we need the input from those people as to what do you need in this community.
Absolutely. And I find it very interesting. Well, Witchell is going to be 25 years old. It was originally developed in the kitchen on
Hmm.
the north side of Chicago. And today we all know. Let me go ahead into another little piece of work that you do. You've got a master's degree in fine arts.
Yes.
I always heard it's a terminal degree for my friends. But what it does mean is that you did part of your thesis. I don't know if it's coming out as a book, but you also presented to Parliament about ritual and ritual garments and ritual items made by the unseen hand of women. Did I
Right.
get?
Well, my thesis is called Women and the Invisible Labors of Ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And I am working towards expanding my thesis paper and hopefully into a book very soon. I've been so busy with a lot of things
Oh,
this year
sure.
coming up. But yes, my thesis work and exhibit consisted of a robe and a coat, and I
Mm-hmm.
also had a headpiece, a walking staff, and a talking stick.
Mm-hmm.
And those were all done with beadwork, and that was my medium of choice. And I was the first artist to use beadwork for an MFA at Columbia College Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an unusual choice of medium. It's not a traditional medium, obviously. It's more traditionally thought of as a craft. But
Hmm.
when you go around the world and you see somebody, for example, from Africa, who has incredibly beaded works, clothing, jewelry, everything that are used in religious practices of one form or another, or you go to Eastern Europe or Asia and you see these things, and a lot of it has been done by women. And women are not recognized for this. It's hidden, it's not something talked about.
So it's women who are preparing these things, but
Yes,
not necessarily wearing them. And again, it's back to male wearing them.
correct.
And,
A lot of the time, yes.
and the men are not making it for themselves, mostly. It is women, and they're not being acknowledged for it. I mean, some of it is for women, but most of
Right.
it, but some of the fanciest pieces are for men in ritual.
Yes. Well, now there is an exception to this, of course. Many indigenous American communities, the men are also doing the beadwork.
Hmm.
And you'll see that, like, for example, one of my favorite beadwork artists is a gentleman called Elias Jade Not Afraid. And
Hmm.
he has exhibited here in Chicago at the Field Museum and a couple other places doing his indigenous work, and incredibly talented. But again, they wear it for powwows and other
Hmm.
things, and you'll see a lot of that. But yeah, of course, there are exceptions to every rule in that regard.
So you're talking more of a thesis that you saw applied to many cultures, with a few exceptions outside of it.
Yes,
And even there, even if males do the work, do females get enough recognition for what they do?
not at all. No,
So even if when men are doing so, they seem to get more credit for
mhm.
doing the same work as women.
Yes, it's a very well, culture in general, for the most part, is a
Hmm.
very patriarchal thing these days. It's been that way forever, pretty much. Uh, we've got to deal with it now, especially it's getting to the point where women are being pushed aside and being told, no, you can't do this because it's men's work. Well, that's not necessarily the case. It hasn't been the case, but we're
It's
all trying, to change that.
well, I know that's true of beer. I mean,
Yeah.
beer was and women work was something women did.
Hmm.
And it was, oftentimes, and then you got scandalized as witch work as the monks wanted to take it over and change it into a male industry.
Yep.
Beer, bread, food, agriculture, all of it has a roots in women's culture.
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
um, and so it is. One thing I will tell people about beads, start saving them.
Hmm.
I think beads have a value. People say, "Oh, if the society fell apart, what good are beads?" Do you know beads have been currency more often than any amount of gold or silver? It's been used by more cultures and more places to show value, both religiously and just value in general of talent and skill. It's hard to get to. In the Americas, that was very true.
Hmm.
Seashells on the coast and things like that being used not only for jewelry, but also for a form of currency, a form of value holding. So
Correct.
don't discount beads because it seems so easy to be made from. I know people would say, "Well, beads are easy to make." Can you talk about that?
Well, not really. I mean, you'd be surprised what it takes to make a bead. Okay, for example, indigenous Americans do things like the Navajo, for example, do these beautiful silver beads. They are colloquially called Navajo pearls. They're a round bead made of sterling usually, but they can be made of other things too. They've made them of copper. Old coins are very popular to make these because it's what's readily available.
Mm-hmm.
Also, seashells. There's a particular kind of shell, and it's on usually the East Coast where you'll find a lot of these. It's a purple and white mollusk that they used, and that was a currency item as well. Today's modern beads actually stemmed from Italy for the
Mm-hmm.
predominant Italy, the Czech Republic, Eastern Europe, and made of glass mostly because glass at the time was considered a very valuable item because it was hard to make.
Hmm.
Now, today, you make glass, it's real simple. But the traditional old glass beads are a lot more valuable than today's modern glass beads, which you'll find made a lot of times Japan, China, India, the Czech Republic. Italy still does make some, but there are very small amounts and they're worth quite a bit of money. I mean, if you wanted to buy the same amount of beads from Murano, Italy, essentially, in the Venetian uh, archipelago area, they would cost a lot more than anything you would find from China, Japan.
Sure. Absolutely. So we're gonna bring this. So Panthea. So how can people contact you to join any of this?
Well, for Panthea, or you can contact me. Panthea has a Facebook presence, and you can
Hmm.
just look up Panthea Pagan Fellowship. I don't have the UUA on there because we are currently not UUA, but we're again working on that.
Hmm.
You can also contact me at Midwest Pagan Women. It's MW Pagan Women at gmail.com. And that's probably about the easiest way if you wanted to email me. Otherwise, Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty the traditional paths today. Isn't it amazing
Yeah.
that we've gotten? So my last question.
Mhm.
So what advice would you give to somebody today about trying to join the community, especially younger folks, because they don't have a reader?
Right. Well, be open. Do your research. There are a lot of people who are very honest and open in groups and what they want to accomplish, but there are also a lot of people who have, let's say, nefarious intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if something does not feel right, then it probably isn't. But also be willing to explore options. Go to one thing, and if it doesn't feel right, go to another thing. Meet people. There are places like, look online. There are coffee shops in the city that host pagan events. There are bookstores that host pagan events. Rituals in the warmer weather. There are a lot of things that are still done on Lake Michigan at the beaches. Those are quite enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Unitarian churches in the area. You've got 2U in the city. You've got Evanston Unitarian, which holds some wonderful rituals. Uh, and if you're in the suburbs, there's also Elgin and Geneva and Palatine as well, Unitarian, which host those are cups events generally, which is Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans. And just be willing to learn. That is, I think, the most important thing. Read the books. A lot of these things you can find online and free sources. Go talk to people. If you see somebody at an event, come on over, say hello. For the most part, if you're at an event, you're pretty open, you're willing to learn from other people, you're willing to talk and share. And you have to be just kind. Just be decent and kind. That's the most important thing, especially now with what we have going on. If we don't take care of each other and take care of our groups, then what do we have left?
And with that, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
I think that's a great ending to this. Blessings. And we'll hear more from Melanie Silver this year because she's actually very involved, and we're going to hear more from her this year about a range of the factors. She's one of the emerging leaders, one of the next top tier leaders that will emerge, and you should check her out. Waiting for what she has to say. And she is beautifully outspoken, which is one of the things I adore. So thank you very much, Melanie.
Great. Thank you and blessed be.
And blessed be, folks, and I'll be back again with another great interview. And we're going to continue talking about our community, not just about what we believe, but how we actually live our lives.